Yeah, okay. Where should I go? Well, hello. Thank you for joining. We'll just be a minute.
Tony, we're on time.
Are you okay? Hello, we'll just be one more or less than a minute now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tibet Center, Kunchug Tardu Ling, a Buddhist meditation and study center, located in New York City, northern New Jersey. This is our twice-weekly presentation of the Buddha Dharma. Specifically, this is a talk series entitled DHARAMSALA Through the Eyes of a Western Nun. All the prayers we say are on the website under the FAQ section. Scroll down to prayers. If there's a problem with the sound or anything else, please let Darren or Tony know. And if there's anyone you wish us to pray for at the end, please put their names in the chat box. So we'll begin with the prayers. The prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems, and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living here, together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them. May all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are a source of happiness and happiness. Never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may they spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. And now for the Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, which examines the Dharmas called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, follow the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, "How should those ones learn wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge?" And Avalokiteshvara answered, "Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus, all dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nindandas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All gurus who live in past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge should completely awaken to the unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calls all suffering, should be known as truth. There is no deception. In the transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed. Tai tam gate gate para gate parasam gate bodhi soha. O Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the bodhisattva mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, O son of noble family, profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as if you had taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the worlds with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. Could you pass my handbag? And now we're going to generate bodhicitta and say refuge to establish a good motivation. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So thank you very much for joining. And just as a quick summary from last time, I was now a nun and lived in an apartment right behind Nichang Oracle's house and garden. I had fallen in love with the scent and idea of a night flowering jasmine. I was enthralled by the idea that flowers could bloom at night, which actually still amazes me. Its smell was ever so captivating, intoxicating, in fact. I would spend time in the evening deeply breathing in the air. Sometimes I even interrupted my prayers to do so. Tisk, tisk. In other words, I had gotten very attached to the night flowering jasmine in his garden. And what is attachment? It is one of the 3 poisons. And are poisons good for you? No, they're quite the opposite. They hurt you. Ouch. And what is one of the ways they hurt you? They lead to other non-virtuous states of mind, which then lead to non-virtuous physical and verbal actions, which then leads to negative or bad karma. And around on samsara's roller coaster we go. Maybe samsara's Ferris wheel is better because the wheel of life looks more like a Ferris wheel, but it doesn't have the same ring. Samsara's Ferris wheel, samsara's roller coaster. Anyway, at least anyway, it took all it took was the gardener cutting this plant down, and up sprung a grudge. Ah, the blossoming of a grudge, not as sweet as the night flowering jasmine. It's not that I was out to get him or I wanted any harm to come to him, but I was no longer as happy to see him in the morning. I didn't say good morning with the same open feeling as before he cut down my much beloved plant. It's not like he did anything actually harmful, so obviously the grudge wasn't of a grandiose proportion, but it did make me like him less. But when I was working in New York City, my grudges were a lot more extreme, as you can imagine. But living in India, around a lot of Dharma practitioners, be it lay people, monks, nuns, geshes, geshemas, rinpoches, tulkus, there are on the whole much fewer negative interactions. It is not a pure land, but it's probably as close to one on earth as one can get, at least that I know of. Once I was having lunch with the Tibet Center member French Marianne, as Tony refers to her, or her nun name of Kunki. We were at the cafe/art space where Rinpoche Nikki had one of his photo exhibits for Rato Monastery. It has a great view of the mountains. On sunny days like this one, you always see a lot of people paragliding around the mountains, all with colorful fabric wings. The paragliders look like the Aryas flying in the famous stages of Shamatha, or calm abiding meditation chart, which I'm actually going to hopefully show you if all goes well. Yes. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Hold on. So some of you might have seen this before. Well, you can't really tell. Okay, but anyway, so it has a white path, it has a white path and going up to the top of the mountain, and it shows an elephant, monkey, monk, and a rabbit at different sections of the path. The monk represents the meditator. The elephant stands for our mind. The monkey is obvious distractions, and the rabbit is more subtle obstacles to concentration. And the path ends at the top of the mountain. At that point, all the animals are gone. Hold on, and I'll show you the end point, which is very cute. All the animals are gone, and the monk is flying using his Zen wrap. So I'll also show that. You can kind of see him. Whoops, it's opposite. There he is flying. He's an Arya. He's flying. He's reached enlightenment. Yay for him. Or at least nirvana. Anyway, so he's flying around using his Zen wrap to glide him. This is what the paragliders actually look like. Marianne said she could understand why people think of the area as a pure land with these visions of Aryas flying around the mountains. But in Midtown Manhattan, there aren't many mountains, or any mountains, and there are definitely no Aryas flying around. On the whole, companies aren't usually places anyone would confuse for a pure land. But these are very good places to practice Dharma. It is there that I took a stab at working on my grudges. I wanted to lessen mine and wanted to apply the Dharma, or at least mind training, to do so. One of the first things I read when I returned to Buddhism was Chekawa's 7 Points of Lojong, or mind training, which contains 59 slogans under 7 broad points. I can't help but list some of them as they are very helpful, especially the first one. The 7 points are: 1, the preliminaries or basis for practice, which are 4 things we should always be aware of we should always keep in mind if possible. Remember the preciousness of your human rebirth. Be aware of your impermanence. That is to help spur you to practice. Recall that whatever you do has a result, in other words, karma. And the nature of samsara is suffering. So don't be so focused on self-importance, says Drongpa Rinpoche. Don't spend your time thinking about how good or bad you are, as all you will do is just experience suffering. The third point is the main practice, the training of the 2 bodhicittas, the ultimate and conventional awakening mind. The third point is transforming or bringing of bad circumstances onto the path. The fourth is a synthesis of practice for one's life. The fifth, the measure of having trained one's mind. The sixth, the pledges or commitments of mind training. And the seventh and last point, guidelines or precepts of mind training. I focused on the sixth, the pledges and commitments of mind training, which include the following slogans, which I really like, so I'm going to list them. They are: be dedicated to your practice, refrain from outrageous conduct, and develop patience. Reduce ego clinging, but be yourself. Don't take pleasure contemplating others' defects. Don't ponder others, meaning don't take pleasure contemplating others' weaknesses. Work with your greatest obstacle first. Abandon any hope of fruition. Abandon poisonous food. Don't hold grudges. That's the one I worked on. Don't malign others. Not that I haven't worked on others, but still. Don't await for others' weaknesses to show to attack them. Don't humiliate others. Take responsibility for yourself. Don't try to be the fastest. Do good deeds without scheming about benefiting yourself. Don't use these slogans or your spiritual practice to increase your self-absorption. And don't seek others' pain as limbs of your own happiness. The first one I decided to work on was don't hold grudges. When I first started on the path to coffee, boy, did I like to hold grudges. Not just with friends and families, but with grocery store clerks who were always so rude to me. The train conductor who refused to turn down the air conditioning even in the winter. Being a highly sensitive person, that's an HSP, I took most of these things personally, which just led to a long list of grudges with varying degrees of animosity. The best place for grudges was work, so I decided to try applying some Buddhist antidotes while I was there. I started out with someone a bit senior to me who had really stuck it to me in an email and CC'd my boss. Since that event, I didn't want to have anything to do with that person. I spent quite a lot of time and energy trying to avoid this person, always dreading any interaction with them. Eek, here he comes. I will hide in the ladies' room. It was actually impacting my job, and I took my job very seriously, and that event I took very personally. Because of that, lo and behold, I had an enemy. Well, maybe one notch down from an enemy. I will use the word adversary. I quickly started to have some ill will towards him. If I heard him cough or sneeze, instead of saying, bless you, I would think, good, he's getting sick, serves him right. Now, when I say this, being reminded of my venom makes my stomach feel quite queasy and ill. It was all quite disgusting. But if you aren't a Buddhist or are new or unaware and you don't really believe how horrible the self-cherishing mind is, this slippery, slimy, yucky attitude has a way to make the process feel appropriate at the time. Anger and hatred quickly fog our minds, so we can't think clearly. Oh, he was mean to me last week, so I'm going to blow up his spaceship battlecruiser. Oops, sorry, wrong movie. It seems like a primal instinct to negatively react when someone provokes us. The moment someone puts us down or hurts our ego, we nearly immediately do whatever we can to protect our ego and bring ourselves back up. Our most important response is revenge or retaliation, which are said to be coping mechanisms to avoid shame. They are referred to as a misguided attempt to transform shame into pride by getting the upper hand. Ha ha, so there, I win. Ha ha. But I couldn't seek revenge or retaliate as he was above me and could easily have me fired in a nanosecond. Oh, those hidden grudges. We all have them to varying degrees. When someone hurts or bothers us in some way, we remember and hold on to it. Sometimes we can hold on so tight and for so long that resentment, just because of one small little event or minor event, we can hold on for years. One of my great aunts still goes on about how someone 70 years ago didn't give her a prize for her flower arrangement in the local competition. That Mr. So-and-so shouldn't have been allowed to be a judge. He was such a terrible person. We naturally have the mistaken view that the offending party is permanent, remains exactly the same, and is inherently bad. We are unable and unwilling to change our view of them. Sometimes we seek revenge. Other times we jump at the chance to put them down, make fun of them, talk behind their backs, make snide remarks and little jabs. The list is endless. As Shanti Davis says in the Patience chapter of the Bodhisattva Way of Life, for myself and for my friends, I want no suffering, no disrespect, no harsh words, and nothing unpleasant. But for my enemies, it is the opposite. So where should I begin? How could I make a dent in this? Demanding an apology or getting them to extract their statement wasn't possible. I could not control anything they did. It had to come from my own side, but I couldn't just drop the matter and forgive them. The circumstance was too big for me, and I was not 100% true practitioner of altruism. As His Holiness said when summarizing the 5th verse of the 8 verses of mind training by Geshe Langri Tangka of the 11th century, when others provoke you, perhaps for no reason or unjustly, instead of reacting in a negative way, as a true practitioner of altruism, you should be able to be tolerant towards them. You should remain unperturbed by such treatment. And the verse reads, when others out of jealousy treat me badly with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. It didn't help that my Medusa-like attitude turned that person into a stone figure labeled the person who put me down. They were no longer the person that once helped me with a long and complicated project, or the person that always opened the door for me and stood to one side to let me off the elevator first. All of that just went out the window. They were evil and mean from their own sides. If he bends his head a certain way, I'm sure he's growing horns. Finally, I thought about the saying I've heard from a few Buddhist teachers that came from the Greek philosopher Heraclitus. I'm not sure if I said his name properly. Anyway, no one ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man. I remember one of my teachers explaining this verse. The river is not the same as the water being carried by the current is always changing. Plus, the shape of the river changes over time due to erosion and environmental factors. And the physical person is also not the same, as the human body replaces nearly all of its cells every 7 to 10 years. I even remember Chungla Rinpoche pointing this out. So if our bodies and all other things change, why can't our mentality? Transformation is natural and something everyone does. So I began to think of this person as the man who stepped in the river twice, never the same and always changing. Each time I saw him, I tried to think that he had changed, that he wouldn't try to put me down, and that he was actually supportive of me. Who knows, maybe he regretted sending that email, but couldn't bring himself to apologize. Maybe he was having a bad day and sent the email to vent some of his frustration. It's not like I've never taken things out on others. Within a few weeks, I spent a lot less time trying to avoid him, and I didn't duck into the ladies' room so often. Our conversations remained uncomfortable, but he started to grow on me. My grudge had fizzled out. At least this grudge had. But I knew there would be more to come, and with that, more suffering. It's a shame. Later, I started to wonder why I reacted in this way in the first place. If the same incident happened to someone else, they might not have created so much venom or so much anger. Sometimes we blow things out of proportion because something similar might have happened in the past, which we have left unresolved. I realize this is more psychology than Buddhism, but sometimes it helps to understand why we do things. We have predispositions to certain behaviors, but we can also replay things or situations from our past over and over again until we resolve them. It was time that I do the ugly task of delving into my past to find out what might have started it all off. In my early adolescence, I was not very popular and was the brunt of mean kids' jokes, which made me miserable. These feelings festered, and eventually I grew my anger inwards. Not good. There they sat bottled up for years until the soda maker arrived. Then my anger became so pressurized that even the slightest provocation would set me off. Before looking at it from a Buddhist point of view, I had at least realized that neither suppression or expression worked to lessen my anger. They both felt like very immature responses. The first, suppression and bottling things up, seemed cowardly. Hiding my problems didn't make them go away, it just made things worse later. The second, expression, was very irresponsible. Following the accepted belief that anger needs to be let out and expressed in order for it to go away is just so wrong. I remember once, after yelling at my kind mother, I felt so bad, and she said, "It's okay. It's good to let out your anger." It's not okay. Doing that reminds me of another slogan from the 59 in the 7 Points of Mind training. Don't transfer the load to others. In other words, don't dump your crap on someone else and make them feel bad. Emptying out your baggage on someone else's doorstep doesn't make it go away. Plus, it's not a very nice thing to do. Luckily, suppression and expression aren't the only two options. The Buddhist approach is to reduce or stop the anger by applying the antidote of patience. Yay! That, as well as love and compassion. I personally think generating love and compassion helps to resolve any and all afflictions, that and the oneness of humanity. I thought I would first try self-compassion as an antidote, but I didn't do it correctly. My idea of self-compassion had too much self in it and created a very dualistic attitude, creating a very concrete barrier between me and them. Part of me wanted to mentally go back in time and let those mean kids know how much they hurt me, but that would have opened up wounds further and hurt them also. To close the wound, I felt like I had to like them or at least feel more connected to them, making the barrier between us less thick and solid. All those bullies and mean people had their own hurts. Behaving that way was their second arrow, their reaction. That's from the parable of the two arrows that we spoke about last week. It was their reaction to a previous and ongoing pain. One of the bullies had an abusive parent. I was not a fly on their wall, but I can imagine how difficult that must have been being in that house. If someone is abused, odds are they will abuse others, even unknowingly. Without any real intention, it's just their natural and automatic reaction to their pain. It's wonderful that we pass down nice heirlooms down to the next generation, like pearl necklaces and grandfather clocks. But it's a shame that this also happens with abuse. Odds are one of their parents was also abusive. So who should we really blame for for them being bullied? Whoops, excuse me. I remember Rinpoche pointing this out. Who can we really blame? The person, their parents' parents? Where does it end? Feeling empathy for the bullies definitely helped close the wound, but not quite. Then I started to think about how bullying, especially cyberbullying, has become much more prevalent now. It is the driving factor behind the increase in early teen and preteen suicide around the globe. My experience of being bullied allowed me to come closer to understanding their pain. Thinking of them opened up my heart, and at the same time, my wound closed. I was shocked. Suddenly, there was one big, warm, fuzzy bunch of people, and that warmth made me feel more connected to everyone. Or was it the other way around? With that warmth with that warmth, it went to my jasmine decimating gardener, and he turned back into the mild-mannered Nichian oracle gardener, the one I said hello to in the mornings, the one who was very nice to me when I saw him on the street. He is not only their gardener, but he also wears the hat of the oracle's attendant and escorts the many groups and individuals who go to get advice from the Nichian oracle. The gardener also wears the hat of protector of the house and garden, defender against the monkeys. For some reason, the monkeys always liked going there in the mornings, nearly most mornings, in fact. Monkeys seem to eat just about anything. In terms of devouring gardens, I think monkeys even give rabbits and deer a run for their money. They also love walking, jumping, or skipping across roofs of the Nichian Oracle's monastery. What a racket they make. Just about all of the roofs in Dharamsala are made out of metal, and some of the monkeys are pretty big. Plus, they travel in groups, sometimes up to 20. You can probably imagine the thunderous sound they make. They actually sound much even louder than those large horns that the monks played in the morning. There are two types of monkeys in Dharamsala, gray langurs or something, I'm not saying it right, and macaque monkeys. The gray langurs have fluffy, long gray hair and a black face. They are actually really cute. They tend to be reasonably passive and are not known for being aggressive. But still, they are animals I'd only seen in zoos. I'd say dealing with them is way out of my comfort zone. Some comfort zones are good to walk out of, but when they're 40 pounds and sitting in front of the entrance to your apartment building, that's another story. The monkeys, on the other hand, are much more scary as they are quite aggressive. Those are the ones you definitely don't want to make eye contact with, as it's a sign you are threatening and challenging them. The same with showing your teeth or smiling at them. And definitely don't make any kind of contact with their babies. These big red bummed mamas don't like that at all. On the path to my apartment, there are these really high walls on either side where the monkeys sometimes sit. I don't like walking near them or underneath them, so my usual MO in this situation has become waiting for someone else to come and then walk with that person. A strategy I learned while trying to cross big roads in Italy. One Saturday, I was trying to get home after lunch. I was in a hurry to attend Ling Rinpoche's teachings on the 37 practices of a bodhisattva coming out of Austria. There was a big group of monkeys on the road on both sides of it also. I really had to get home, but there was no way I could walk inches close to a monkey and no one else was around going my direction. Then one of my philosophy teachers, a well-known geshe in the area, Geshe Tsondu, who came walking towards me. Most people would just walk by and say hello, but he must have seen my fear. He gallantly stood between me and the monkeys, giving me a safe path. I was so relieved and thankful. It also gave me a lot of respect for him. He instinctively applied compassion to the situation. Earlier, another student mentioned to me that he was a compassionate person, but I didn't see it. From that moment on, I did. He didn't need to do that. He could have just walked by with that acknowledging nod that teachers give to their students. But he showed or applied compassion to the situation. And applied here is the key. You need to apply Buddhism to our lives. In both undergraduate and graduate school, I studied applied mathematics. Yeah, Eugene's here. He also studied mathematics. Anyway, it's the language of the sciences. Without the applied, it becomes the study of pure mathematics, which is applying math to math, with proofs using mathematical concepts, reasoning, and logic. I'm not knocking pure math. In fact, I wish I'd taken more classes, as it's very closely related to Buddhist logic used in Tibetan debate. Nevertheless, applied math is what I liked at the time, with its sense of action and use. That's why I like the phrase turning the wheel of Dharma, which is used when the Buddha gave teachings, as it carries a sense of movement and action. I think of Tibetan Buddhism as the applied mathematics of life. Yay. The Dharma is dynamic, not something static that is best left on the shelf. You need to interact with it, be open, introspective, and honest. As the saying goes, the more you put into something, the more you get out of it. So here's to Geshe Tsondu. Yay! Sorry. I really appreciated what he did. And appreciation is such a wonderful feeling. With it comes a connection, a feeling of connection and closeness. I remember when I left Buddhism and tried to make a go of samsara. Once I lost appreciation for people, my feelings of loneliness and bitterness started to develop. To emphasize the closeness and interconnectedness of humanity, there is a Tibetan exercise of mentally thanking everyone who helped get your dinner on the table, or even just your loaf of bread. This includes not just the farms, but the delivery people, the cashiers at the store, the manufacturers of the packaging, the gas jockeys who pump the gas for the truckers. The list is nearly endless. When I first heard this, my reaction was, why should I thank them? They were paid to do that. Of course, that's not the point of the exercise, but I couldn't help how I felt. Not wanting to write it off, I tried to develop more appreciation by combining it with the theory of the 6 degrees of separation. It was not only a Broadway play, but an idea that everyone on this planet knows each other through a chain of 6 people. For example, I thought of someone I was very thankful for, such as a tow truck driver who had just gotten my stalled car off the highway, dropped me off at my house, and barely charged me. I then imagined that in his spare time, he designed the packaging of my bread, or maybe one of his loved ones did. This thought generated more appreciation, which allowed me to honestly thank them, even if it was their job. It didn't really matter, even if what I imagined was true or not, because like they say, hey, you never know. We have countless connections to others through our furniture, cars, shoes, everything we own. Just thinking about that brought me a lot of joy. It made me feel more connected to people outside of my 4 walls. It's not that I started chatting with every stranger, but without it trying, it made me feel less lonely. It was a wonderful exercise and a wonderful feeling appreciation is. Appreciation helped me feel so good as I walked past the Geshe monkey barrier. But then out of the blue, a casual acquaintance jokingly yelled, "You're such a girl," being scared of monkeys and all. It's funny how quickly samsara can kick you in the butt and take your steam away. I knew it was just a joke and that they didn't mean it anyway, but words are very powerful and sometimes hard to just ignore. Comments like that are similar to the anti-motivational slogans which are popular now. They are just for fun and not something that should be brought deep into your heart. Laughed at, yes, but taken seriously, no. At work, we all had a good laugh at one of my friend's much-loved anti-teamwork phrases. There is no I in team, but there is a you in suck. I have to apologize as that still makes me laugh. It reminds me of my friend at work. At the end of the day, though, we knew nothing would get done if we didn't have teamwork. So the laughing and fun we kept, but we've dropped the connotation. There is no way we can stop people from making fun of us or discouraging us. It would be great if we could. Realizing it's in your control to not take these punches of discouragement to heart is ideal. Not easy, but ideal. It's hard not to internalize discouragement, whether it's external or internal. But just seeing it in a different light can be very helpful. It's important to put the ball in your court and not the court of anti-motivation. I didn't want demoralizing words to win and lead me not to move forward in the path. If you actually do take these words to heart and allow them to stop your spiritual path, Tibetan Buddhism labels that as being lazy. J. Tsongkhapa emphasizes this in the Lam Rim's chapter on the perfection of joyous effort, how discouragement is a form of laziness. I was astonished when I first heard this. It was such an optimistic and refreshing idea that really motivated me. I have never looked at self-contempt and discouragement from that angle before. Just replacing the word discouragement with laziness without any deep analysis made it so much lighter and something much easier to work on. So it's wonderful and beneficial that Buddhism emphasizes the importance of self-confidence. It nearly forces you to be confident. Because without confidence, how on earth are you going to become a Buddha? At that point, I just wanted to be able to stand on my own 2 feet and not stand quivering with fear in the middle of the road each time a monkey was near. Other people were able to walk calmly by them. It's not like I wanted to go up and pet them or anything, because that would be unsafe and silly. But I wanted to feel like I could walk more at ease. Granted, being around them more and being told what not to do around them helped me feel better. Then another event happened that helped me reduce more of my fear. I was at Tashita, which is a Dharma center just above McLeod Ganj. Once a year, they hold a lovely picnic for all the Western monastics in the area. The year before, it had been inside due to heavy rain, but this year it was outside, and it was a lovely day. It's such a pretty location, surrounded by a forest of tall trees. Inside the compound, there is grass to sit on, picnic tables, a colorfully painted gampa, some beautiful ornate stupas, a library with a deck so you can sit outside, read the Dharma, and look at the view. I find it a very relaxing place. I arrived a bit early. I had never seen Lama Zopa Rinpoche in person and didn't realize he was staying there. He was standing next to his room some yards away, feeding the monkeys. I couldn't help but just stand there and stare. There were a few of us standing on the Gampa's patio, just standing like a bunch of ninnies in a line, staring at him. He looked up and smiled and said something along the lines of how we're all of one taste. I then went back to feeding the monkeys. And then he went back to feeding the monkeys. I took it to mean that in emptiness, the monkeys aren't good or bad, not something to fear or desire, that they were merely illusions, as my fear was. Like a verse from the 37 practices of a bodhisattva, all forms of suffering are like a child's death in a dream. Holding illusory appearance to be true makes you weary. Therefore, when you meet with disagreeable circumstances, see them as illusory. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Of course, I could be wrong, and he meant something totally different. Who knows? He didn't throw in any commentary. Regardless, it left me much to think about, and maybe that was his point. All of us who heard him got something different out of what he said, and I'm sure it was all very helpful to everyone. The whole event left me feeling less scared of monkeys. It's funny how some things work in a subtle way, or how some subtle things work, like blessings. Later, I learned that he fed the monkeys and other animals often. He would bless the food he gave them with mantras and then recite mantras as he fed them. In fact, I've heard Tony recite mantras, the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra, each time he feeds Buddy, the temple cat in South Orange, who's mysteriously asleep. Yay. Doing this creates imprints on the animal's continuum. Lucky Buddy and well done, Tony. Yay. That's what I'm going to say. Chungla Rinpoche also did this for his cat, Jack Benny. As I am sure most of you know, when Rinpoche was away, he would play recordings of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings, as well as initiations and I'm sure mantras for Jack Benny's benefit. There is a similar story about Vasubandhu. Vasubandhu was the younger half-brother of Asanga, who lived in the 4th and 5th centuries. He's one of the 6 ornaments, the greatest Buddhist authorities of ancient India, the others being Nagarjuna, Aryadeva, Asanga, Dignaga, and Dharmakirti. I am uncertain why Chandrakirti isn't on the list. Maybe it's due to him coming later in the 7th century. Anyway, Vasubandhu wrote many great texts, including the Treasury of Abhidhamma, or in Sanskrit, the Abhidharma Kosha, a complete and systematic account of the Abhidharma, the treasury of knowledge. There are a few versions of this story, which I will combine, but mostly take from Alex Berzin's Study Buddhism website. Vasubandhu could recite all the words of the Buddha, a process that would take him 15 days. Reciting these texts for such a long period, however, disturbed the energies in his body. In Tibetan, this is referred to as lung disorder, a disorder of the winds or the energy in the system. In order to prevent this ailment, he would sit in a very large copper vessel filled with oil. While sitting in this tub, he would recite all the works of the Buddha, and this would prevent him from getting any nervous disorder. Just a quick note, this is not something to try at home or at the Tibet Center. I mean the sitting in a large copper vessel with oil. Reciting the words of the Buddha, yes. Sitting in a vessel of oil, no. Anyway, there was a pigeon who would sit nearby him as he was reciting. One morning, while Vasubandhu was reciting these works, the pigeon flew away to find some food. However, the pigeon came back, sat there, and continued listening to the words of the Buddha that Vasubandhu was reciting. After the pigeon died, it was reborn as a human in one of the distant border regions of India. Vasubandhu was residing at the time at Nalanda, which is in the central part of India. When this child reached the age of 2 or 3, he spoke to his parents and said, "My guru is Vasubandhu, Vasubandhu." There were many merchants who traveled from the central area of India to these border regions. So the father inquired from these traveling merchants if in fact there was a guru in central India by the name of Vasubandhu. The merchants at that time said, yes, there is a master name there by the name of Vasubandhu. So his father sent his young child in the care of these merchants to be brought to his master to stay with him and study the texts. There was a statue of Tara in close proximity to where Vasubandhu resided. The child went to the nearby field and picked some beans, brought them to the statue, and placed them on the lap of this Tara statue as an offering. Being a small child, he didn't put them in the lap very carefully, and the beans spilled out and fell on the floor. The child started to cry and said, "I won't eat these beans. If you won't eat these beans, then I won't eat these beans either." In that moment, the Tara statue spoke and said, "I will take these beans." In that way, he received the blessings of Tara. The child became a monk named the Abhidharma Master. In Sanskrit, Sathiramati, and in Tibetan, Lobpan Lodun. Please excuse my pronunciation. He became an expert on the text that he had heard when he was a pigeon, and later wrote 4 commentaries on this text. Simply by hearing Vasubandhu's recitation, the pigeon was reborn as a human, and later also become a great scholar. We are definitely far better off than pigeons, as we can listen to the teachings and walk, as well as understand them. So in our future lives, we will definitely have the opportunity to continue to study and hear the Dharma. The fact that we are all here now, having met the Dharma, as well as Chungla Rinpoche and other great teachers, is due to the result of having accumulated virtuous karma in the past. It's really great news that we will run into the Dharma in our next lives. So now, nothing we hear or learn is wasted. So now that's definitely something to rejoice about. Yay!
4 or 5 minutes.
Oh, 4 or 5 minutes. I'll just finish this one paragraph. When I first started learning about Buddhism, I didn't really believe in... I'm sorry? Are we okay?
No names.
Okay.
No names.
Okay, I'll just finish. When I first started learning about Buddhism, I didn't really believe in karma or past and future lives. All of these concepts were very foreign to me. Of course, not living under a rock, I had heard of them, but was not very accustomed to any. When I was not comfortable with something, my usual reaction was to close my mind off to new ideas. But I knew, being new to Buddhism, there would be many new, wild, and wondrous concepts. So I put in effort into being more open-minded and at least listen to the teachings on these 3 subjects, karma as well as past and future lives. So we'll stop here and we'll say our prayers. So we have no names, so we'll just say the recollection of the 3 noble jewels for all who have passed away in general. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha Bhagavat Tathagata Arhat Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and victorious one, Lusagata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans, is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those following to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the present and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The holy Dharma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted, is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is by the Dharma, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy, it is trustworthy, and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Yana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protectors who possess a great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, for the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in completely pure realm. Yay. So thank you very much. Oh, and hello,
Thank you very much,
Steve.
Jackie.
Thank you, Steve Burns, and everyone else for joining. And I'll be speaking again on Tuesday in New York City. But this Saturday, we have White Tara, which also happens to be the Tibetan Losar New Year's, as well as Chinese New Year's. So hope to see you there. Anyway, thank you very much, and sending waves of love to all of you. Thank you for joining.